to take a picture?
Yes,
Yes.
we are all looking very poised and ready right now.
We are now live.
Okay. Okay, we are live. Okay, great. All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 7th session of Sunday Musings. It is an unique endeavor by Anubhav Positive Psychology. And I am Shomali Bordhon, Anubhav team member, and our topic for today is bullying and ragging. So, bullying is a repetitive and consistently destructive behavior aimed at causing physical and emotional as well as social harm to others. And what may appear to be a series of unsavory incidents actually leaves behind a complex web of scars on our psyche. So, our goal today is to understand this phenomenon and associated ones like ragging and teasing. And we will look at it from different perspectives, and we shall hope to contribute to the search for a solution. It is my honor to introduce to you our respected panelists for our program. So, I would first like to start with Shonali ma'am. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Shonali ma'am is a guiding light in the field of academics, and she has dedicated her life and career to educating and empowering students since the last 2 decades. And ma'am is a master in zoology from our very own Baligon Science College, and she has always been passionate about life science, which has inspired her to work towards obtaining a fellowship at Indian Institute of Chemical Biology in order to do research on tumors and liver cancer. And ma'am finally decided that the best way to positively impact humanity was by nurturing our children and helping them becoming the pillars of tomorrow. So her teaching career started at St. Xavier's Collegiate School in Kolkata. And since then, ma'am has been associated with various prestigious organizations, such as the Sanskriti School in Delhi, before beginning her present tenure as the principal of Delhi Public School, Newtown in Kolkata, where ma'am still continues to teach her beloved students. We welcome you aboard, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
And our next panelist is Pragya Rashmi, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am. And Dr. Pragya Rashmi has been a well-known face in psychology. She is a doctorate holder and she has been certified by the Albert Ellis Institute in New York as an REBT practitioner. Her core area of work is removing the stigma that is attached to mental health. She works with various organizations as well as families and individuals towards helping them reach a better mental state and a physical state of well-being as well. She dedicatedly works to create insight towards mental distress since she strongly believes that the mind can. Welcome aboard, ma'am.
Thank you.
And our final panelist here is Dipshika. Dipshika is a student who has recently completed her higher secondary education and wishes to be a devoted contributor to the field of psychological well-being. And she has already taken part in several big projects since her start as an intern here. And those include career counseling, life skills training, and she has been observing as well as helping us in these endeavors. And she wishes to become somebody who can help people eradicate the stigma attached to mental health. So we hope for the very best for the future, Dipshika, and we can count on your positive contribution to our cause. Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much.
So before we start our discussion today, we would like to play a very short yet extremely relevant video by Dr. Jayaranjan Ram, who is an eminent psychiatrist who practices in Kolkata. And we would want to thank you, sir, for your valuable contribution here. Could you please have the video?
Hello, I'm Jayaranjan Ram. I'm a psychiatrist. I work a lot with children and young people. I'm happy that I'm able to contribute in some ways for today's webinar. I'm sorry that I can't be on live, but I have already committed to something else and hence I couldn't be a part of it. Today the topic is extremely important and something which is very dear to my heart. It's on bullying. I'm sure a lot of the ground will be covered during this webinar, so I wouldn't like to repeat most of the things which has been said. I just wanted to make a couple of points, maybe a few more, regarding bullying. One is, I think it's very difficult for adults to comprehend the impact of bullying, which can have on mental health, unless we have faced bullying, or unless we work with young people or children who have been bullied. It leaves a deep impact on our minds. It also leaves a deep impact on how we view other people and our future relationships. So I think we need to be extremely mindful of that. The other point regarding bullying is that it really doesn't end in schools or in colleges. Bullying continues in variety of forms, in different guises throughout our society. So therefore, when we are thinking of bullying, I hope the webinar covers the broader aspect of bullying which is present in our everyday lives, and also this terrible scourge called cyberbullying and cyber harassment. Because again, although we are not facing the bullying every day in physical space, but in virtual space, cyberbullying intrudes into our lives, and the impact can be extremely vicious. The other part regarding bullying which I want to mention is bullying exists in any structure where there is a hierarchy. And, in most of our relationship, there is a hierarchical structure. And even if we are conscious about the power structure, inadvertently we might be bullying people who come in contact with us without being conscious of it. And one aspect which I have been increasingly become conscious regarding bullying in a subtle way, and I'm not sure really whether this we can term it bullying in the conventional sense, is in fact during treatment procedures in mental health settings. Psychiatrists, counselors, psychologists, we may inadvertently bully people who come to us when we individually feel frustrated that they are not making progress. I have been made conscious about this because in my feedback from my colleagues, from what I hear from people who come to me, that this can happen in a very subtle manner during our transactions with the people who come to us seeking help, that if they are presenting to us with symptoms which we feel we are doing our best to resolve them, and when they don't improve, they are unable to change for a variety of reasons, we tend to bully them. And I think as therapists, as professionals who are working in the field of mental health, we all need to be extremely conscious of this fact and rectify it. All the best for today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much once again, Dr. Ram, for your brilliant insights and for sharing it with us. So we would like to start our discussion now. And I would like to ask my first question to Shonali ma'am. Ma'am, since both you and Pragya Rashmi ma'am, you have dedicatedly devoted your lives to the well-being of others and helping them grow and blossom, would you like to tell us how it feels when you hear that these people that you're trying to help out, or these people that you're trying to reach out to, they are victims of bullying? And more importantly, how do you maintain a unbiased stance in such situations where at the end of the day, both the child who is doing the bullying and the child who is being bullied are in fact your students.
You're very right, Shomali, because the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear of a child being bullied is irritation and why. The point is, I think the first thing we need to do is accept the fact that it is going to happen, and children will be children. They will be two kinds. Some will bully and some will be bullied. The person who is bullying probably has a history of difficult childhood, has a difficult home front, a lot of competitiveness, wanting to do something but not able to do where his friends are able to achieve things. So he feels that, okay, let me take it out, let me become a little powerful, let me show myself in a light where I can become better than the others. They fail to understand that becoming better than the other, the path that they are taking is very negative. So that is one thing that one needs to accept, because not everybody will be able to be very clear about how they're going to go ahead and achieve what they want to achieve. On the other hand, the person who is being bullied is, of a soft nature, and who feels, okay, fine, so and so is doing it. But then over a period of time, they start becoming overburdened, and they start becoming very, very intimidated. So you have to first thing accept both. And we are human beings, so those feelings of discrimination will be there, but that is where we need to be very, very patient and very open-minded, and not be judgmental, and first and foremost try and get into a discussion with both parties and try and understand why it's happening. Because only when we realize why it's happening can we actually start finding a solution to it. Because you have to find a solution, and like Dr. Ram just said, it can really have a lifelong effect on any individual. So we have to nip it in the bud, and we have to figure out how we can help these children, because they're both children and they're both growing, they're both evolving, they have their whole life ahead of them. So instead of being judgmental and saying, oh, you are doing something wrong, and why are you not doing this, or why are you doing this way? Instead of taking on that stance, be very, very patient and listen to both of them, figure out why it's happening, and then, get into a discussion mode to see how you can change the whole situation.
Okay, yes, ma'am, wonderfully said. So, like you highlighted, ma'am, that we require a discussion with both parties, because at the end of the day, we have to remember they're both children. Okay, ma'am. So, I will move on to Dr. Pragya Rashmi now. So, ma'am, like ma'am was talking about a typical, setup where there is a child who is being bullied and the child who is doing the bullying. In a typical classroom scenario, or even a playground, or even an office, we see that there are some individuals present who are neither the bully nor the bullied child. So what role would you say these individuals play in the social phenomenon, which is popularly known as the bullying cycle? And more importantly, would you say, ma'am, that standing by instead of standing up makes you at least partially responsible for the fate of the victim?
So I'll start with couple of things. That's a very nice question. So first of all, let's understand this. The moment we are talking about the word bullying, we are immediately thinking of school ragging situations and all of this, educational institute, technical institutes, and then we are thinking, is it also happening in workplace? Is it also happening elsewhere? Now, I would like to change this entire perspective. Okay, bullying is coming from adults to the youth. It is not going from the youth to the adult. So the moment we change this perspective of looking at it, we will understand that we are, like Dr. Ram very correctly said, there is a certain amount of power play involved. It is in the dynamics of aggression. It is in the dynamics of hierarchy or rankism, as one of the researchers call it. So Then now let's go into this question of bullying circle or bullying cycle. So I think this is a term that has come around, if I'm not mistaken, around 2002. But the phenomena has been there for, as long as we can remember. It's not even documented. So what is this that we are talking about? Like ma'am said, like Shonali ma'am said, there is a person who is doing it. There is a person who is a victim. So let's call this person A, let's call this person H. So what a researcher has done is he has broken this into chain. There is A, so there's a person who's the bully, then there is his henchman, then there are the people who follow him, then there are the people who are standing by, then there are the people who could have supported but did not support. Like that, he has broken it down into. So this is a researcher called Always, right? If I've got the name right.
Yes,
Shomali, have I got the name right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
I think it's Always, and Always has just done some phenomenal research on this work, okay? And made it very applicable instead of just keeping it to research. So he says that, we are standing there and thinking, oh, this is the fate of the victim. What can we do about it? Poor child. He should stand up for himself. So till that time that you feel, I am neither the perpetrator, I am neither the victim. So who am I? I'm not part of this chain. No, you are part of this chain. Till you start there, till you start to understand that you are part of that chain, even if you are not in that immediate circle of events. So you are a bystander or an upstander. Or so when you're a bystander, now this bystander is again a social psychology phenomena where, you're a bystander. You think somebody else will. Diffusion of responsibility. I don't have to do it. It's somebody else's work. Oh, somebody else should be more responsible, aware, and moral about this and fight for this person, not me. How are you not part of this circle? So, bullying circle, see where you stand in that bullying circle. First thing, you can't be out of that circle. One. Second, so there's a beautiful bullying questionnaire that's available that schools can use, that, workplaces in EAP, employment assistant programs, we use it, where it gives you an understanding where you are. Okay. Then obviously, are you the disengaged supporter? What's a disengaged supporter? I'm there, but I'm not there. It's none of my business, not my monkey, not my circus. Because we have been told as a culture that don't get into somebody else's feud. Save yourself first, me first. Now, if I'm taught that, then obviously there's a problem there, right? Then we are talking about, so what's an upstander? Bystander, we all understand. What's this upstander? Upstander is a person who stands up, who blows the whistle, who supports in whatever way. Now let's have a typical scenario. Somebody is beating up someone. What do? You go and beat up the guy? No, you're too small to do this. If I do it, oh my God, I'll get beaten up too. So what do you do? What's an upstander supposed to do? We've never been told that. We've been talking about bullying. We've been talking about victimizing. We've not been talking about the other people and their role, the larger group. It's the larger group which needs to be brought in. So what do we need to say? You can support in private. You can befriend the victim. You can just say, hey, it's okay. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Hey, that is not right what happened to you. Let's do something about it. Don't do anything, but just say that. Don't stand there silently. If you listen to victims, 22 years of working, and if you listen to victims, the thing that offends them most, the thing that pains them most, they'll tell you, nobody came. Nobody stood by me. Somebody could have done something. Why didn't anybody come? It's not the victim they are angry against. They are angry against all this bullying circle that could have been a blanket of protection. Right? So that's where we come in. Mobilize others. Get people. Don't do it yourself, but tell someone. Now this tell someone brings us to very important thing. Telling is tattling. Don't tattle. Tattling is a bad thing. You should never tattle. It's been taught to us. So we don't know the difference between tattling and raising concern over an important issue. Be silent is something we are also. Not your monkey, not your circus. Stay away. Keep yourself safe. Why are you getting into all this? as long as these are the narratives around us, bullying circle continues to have that long disengaged gap. I think that's your answer.
Yes, ma'am. Wonderfully put, ma'am, and it gives a very good insight into, the roles of the people who are a part of the bullying circle, that, even if you're not actively involved in the process, you do have a role to play, and you must first understand where you stand. Wonderfully put, ma'am.
Thank you.
I will move on to Dipshika now. So Dipshika, like Shonali ma'am and Pragya ma'am have very brilliantly pointed out, there are multiple factors that are present in the personality of the person who is being bullied and as well as the person who is bullying. Okay, so there are certain common characteristics or traits that are often present in people who resort to bullying or putting down others. And it is in fact a well established theory that we all know that people who resort to bullying, like ma'am pointed out, they might be facing a stressful situation of their own. So they might be having issues at their house, or they might themselves be being bullied by somebody else. So, how far would you agree with these statements?
To be honest, when I was in school and I was bullied, I never know about these things that the person who is bullying me is frustrated or something. But the people who are friends with the bullies, they may or may not resort to bullying. But in order to fit into the group or portray themselves as cool, they used to bully me. And they try to become likable by their peers, so that they are in the group which is termed as the cool group, and not in the groups which are always termed as the group which is lacking behind or something. But there are instances that people who bully others in order they try to cope up with their own frustration and unfulfilled desires. But when I was bullied, uh, I never said anything to them, and I was bullied day by day. But then it is partially correct that I instigated them to bully me. But yes, it is sometimes that people who bully me, they are friends with the bullies, so they are there is a it is a very vicious cycle of bullying. So the people who are the bullies and the people who are friends with the bullies, they gang up against one person and then they bully them to take out their frustration on someone, or to portray themselves as superior to them.
Okay. Yes, and like you pointed out, Dipshika, it is very important that if you are a person who is friends with a person who is resorting to bullying, like your friend resorts to bullying somebody, then you might play an active role in their life, which could ultimately have a positive impact on the situation by simply talking to your friend about something that might be bothering them, and which is the reason they might be resorting to bullying. So yeah, that's a wonderful perspective. Thank you for sharing it with us. Moving on to Shonali, ma'am. Ma'am, the Raghavan Committee report of 2007, it was very important as a milestone as far as implementation of anti-bullying laws were considered in academic institutions. So since then, ma'am, the boards have included various anti-bullying measures in their school. Particularly, I think CISC board has implemented anti-bullying measure from which falls under section 6 of the school safety manual. So ma'am, what are some valuable strategies that you as the head of your institution you employ and you find it actually helping you when you deal with teasing and bullying in school situations? And on this particular context, do you feel that the pros and cons of computer usage and cyber safety should be taught to children before the online classes are started?
Okay, so the two things are different. I mean, not entirely different, but needs a different approach.
Yeah.
What Deepshika said very rightly, that when you have this face-to-face bullying, it is more, where children are ganging up, and it is to gain prominence, and it's a power play. You feel, okay, I am more powerful than you, so therefore I have the right to hurt you, though it actually comes from a sense of a very deep-rooted insecurity. However, that is how normally bullies don't work alone. Even if they're working alone, they have a whole lot of followers with them who are some of them silent followers, but they are lending support. And it is the bullies who, sort of gather those supporters along the way, and sort of they feel, okay, I am, all in all, and you had better do this. And, that's how ragging also starts at a later date, in colleges. But the point is that, yeah, you're very right. The council has very clearly and very, very nicely has put across. We are an ICSE school, and we have the school safety manual, and every detailed aspect of a child's safety and security has been mentioned, and very well guidelines. The guidelines are very, very clear, and they form a very good manual for us to follow. But implementing them and working on them is for all of us in the school. Now, here I feel it's very important, what we have done is what Pragya also said, that, you need to, like the bullies build up their team, the ones who are being bullied also need to build up their team. That, when you also have your supporters and followers, and you will have, then you will find that you are becoming more confident in standing up against a bully. So the point here I would like to make is, a bully, okay, has his problems due to various reasons. There will always be a reason why it's happening. And more often than not, they don't even know what the reasons are, why they are doing what they are doing. And the effect it is happening, and the deep-rooted trauma that it is causing to the one they are bullying. And more often than not, they don't realize. They are having fun. It's like fun. Okay, so they do it. And like they said, it's cool to be, doing it. So it's like they fall under that bracket of being cool. But the ones who are being bullied, they feel intimidated because they don't know how to express themselves. They don't know. They feel like ma'am said that, it's like telling tales, but they don't realize that when they are keeping quiet, they are actually supporting it. So they need to also raise their voice against it, and they need to take help, because they themselves are clueless as to how to deal with the situation. So they need help. And because of that, they have to talk to somebody. They need to open up. They have to talk to somebody. So as a school, one needs to keep those channels open. Teachers need to be extremely vigilant and be very approachable, so that children can come forth and talk to teachers. And they also need to be very unbiased and hear both sides out. Because again, like I said, you cannot discriminate and you cannot be judgmental. So they need to hear both sides out. So, but then the person who is being bullied should know that, yes, today I can go to this teacher, or I can go to the vice principal or my academic coordinator or the principal. I have some place where I can go and talk about what I am going through. So that is the first thing. And, you can have a chain. So that is one thing that we have been doing. Second thing, very importantly, student council members play a very important role here, because a child relates to their peers. So a student council member can reach out very easily to the students themselves, and the students, the ones who are being bullied and being teased, they very easily open up to one of their own kind before they go up higher, to a teacher level. The third thing that we need to know very importantly is no punishment. Especially the ones who are the bullies, they should not be punished. Because when you are punishing, you are making them more stubborn. You are making them, more violent and aggressive. So we hear them out and we need to counsel them. It has to be through talking, through discussion, through counseling. We have in our school worked out a few strategies. First and foremost, you need to make them understand that what you're doing is not right. Okay? Whatever may be the reason, let us see then. We are not blaming you for it. We are not going to humiliate you. We are not going to punish you. But let us see what we can do to make it right. Like I said, I firmly believe that the people who are bullying, they are suffering from a sense of insecurity. They don't have a sense of importance, a sense of self-worth. So we have been trying to give that to them. We give them duties in the library. So they are taken out and they're put for duties in the library where they help the librarians arrange books, and it is the librarians who say, oh wow, what a wonderful job done. Oh, can you just take this book out for me? You have placed it so well. Can you? So in front of everybody, it's a positive reinforcement that is going to that child. We have also been doing, sending these children, the ones who are really in a bad state, sending them to the pre-primary. Now, what happens is, initially there is a lot of resentment and a little bit of frustration, and that they feel humiliated. But once they go there, and the teachers make them help out the small children of the pre-primary, nursery, LKG, UKG, holding their hands, making them write, collecting the books, giving them, making them eat. And then because these small little ones, they go, bhaiya, bhaiya, didi, didi, for these children, they suddenly realize that they are important, because they have become the substitute teachers. And children are naughty, some of them are naughty. They realize how difficult it is to handle naughty children, how difficult it is. But again, they get that feeling of importance that, so and so has depended on me, and I have helped that person, helped that small child. And what we do is, normally we get the teachers to give us a report, maybe on a weekly basis, and they write, okay, so this child has helped us this way, has done this. And then we call in these children and we read out that report. And these children, it's a transformation for them, because they've never heard good things like this. And here you have a teacher who has not taught them, who has got nothing to do with them. They are writing good things about what this so-called bully has been helping out with. And that has really, really made a huge help. It has been a huge help for us. I will not find a single case where it has not worked. It is these children who come back and they stand in front of me with tears in their eyes, showing me so proudly, ma'am, see, this child has drawn this for me. And then you tell them, go and share it with your friends, go and share it with your class, because now you see you have got a positive reinforcement. So the negative power that they were getting now has got transformed into something positive. And that has really helped. So these are small strategies that we have used. We don't punish them. There have been instances where we've had to call in parents, but we have tried to avoid that. In some cases, yes, we've had to involve parents, but we do that when the situation is very, very severe and very, very serious. But I think it always helps, first and foremost, not to involve the parents, but to deal with the children by themselves, making them realize, how to go about it. Now, coming to cyberbullying, that is a different thing altogether, because these children, they feel we will not get caught. They have fake IDs, they have fake Facebook accounts and fake Instagram accounts, and they are writing notes, they are abusing, they are harassing others, and they feel that there is this curtain which nobody will be able to see and they will not get caught. But they do. It does come out in the open, because even though they are behind a kind of a curtain, behind another a cover of another name, ultimately they do talk to somebody or the other, saying that, look, this is what I did. And it does come up, and you do get to know. Now, when that happens, this is actually causes a lot of trauma, because it is being done on social media in front of others. It is not just a one-to-one within a small classroom. It is public. So the kind of mental trauma that is caused is tremendous. But here again, once you get to know, I think the again, instead of punishing the children, of course, the first thing we get to do, what we do is first block it. So I make them block it in the office, in front of me, or in front of maybe the headmistress is handling it, or the vice principal is handling it. Get them in front of them. You block your account. You stop your account, and get the ones who are being bullied also to, erase their account, because they're not supposed to be having it. So you first of all block their accounts, and then of course go ahead and do the counseling and do these kind of sessions with them, so that they realize that there is a lot of positive that they have to give, so they don't really need to resort to anything negative. Coming to online safety, with respect to online classes, yes, we have been talking to children, and we've had a few instances, in the initial months when we had started online classes, where children were entering through their own passwords and own IDs, where they were passing comments, and and it was becoming difficult for a teacher to identify. But that was for just about a few days, just a couple of days, or maybe a little more. So what we have done is we have our own DPSN ID for each and every child. So each child will have to attend a class using only that ID. So there they cannot hide, and a teacher will not allow anybody else with any other ID to enter a classroom. So that way, online safety has been taken care of, and we have not been having any such, online problems when classes are going on. We have not. Initially, yes, a couple of times where some comments somebody has made and we don't know who it is, and they're entering through different kinds of names. But then it was just because we had just started, we did not have our own structure formalized at that time, but we have done it very soon. And so right now we don't really have a problem, but it is very, very important for parents, for teachers, for the seniors to make children understand the cons, more than the pros, the cons of being online and being there on social media, because it's very, very risky. It is very necessary. A long lecture. Sorry for that. But there were two questions.
Shomali, you're not audible.
No? Am I okay now? Yeah. Shomali, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Sorry for that. Thank you, ma'am. You've given us some very positive ways in which we can bring about reforms, and I'm sure we will take inspiration from that in the near future. Thank you, ma'am. I will now move on to Pragya Rashmi, ma'am. So, ma'am, I would like to ask you that the two aspects of empathy, basically cognitive as well as the affective empathy and perspective taking. So would you say that these two areas, they play specific roles in their contribution to bullying, or would you say that one surpasses the other as far as bullying is concerned?
So again, we are talking about micro visions to this concept of bullying. Okay, we are breaking it up into phenomenons. And cognitive empathy or affective empathy, why not conative empathy? Just because the research is not done on it yet, right? So I think these terms, again, I think if Shomali, you'll have to correct me there. I think this is again 2010 research.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So as late as 2010, we have broken this down. So where is this coming from? Let's see where we are getting this from. So I'll take you back a little, okay, to two things. One of the thing is, where does the word bullying come from? So if we go back to etymology, or how words come, and if you go back to 15th century, the word comes from a very weird word, which is like a brother, like a ruffian brother or a ruffian lover. Okay, so that's the origin of the word, believe it or not. So it is this person who protects prostitutes. It is this person. So you are wrong, but I am your protector. There's this big brother mentoring part that is there. And it's only much later when, Roosevelt, I think that time the word changed into some sort of a political and a more structured format, right? So this word is automatically coming with some sort of rankism, The beginning of the word is in rankism, right? Now, like Deepshika very nicely said, very sweetly and very innocently in her own way, it was lovely to hear her. She said that I'm not aware. Now let's understand, the bully doesn't come with horns and tails. What is bullying? Bullying is somebody came and called me chashmish, okay, and repeatedly took my specs and broke it. That's fine. And I have been told, oh, that happens to everyone who wears a specs. So I don't know that is bullying. Like Shonali ma'am or Ram sir said, you know, there is a certain acceptance with bullying. We have accepted that bullying is something that is there. We are not saying, hey, bullying is something that should not be there, right? So our paradigm is kind of different. So the moment I'm talking about empathy, am I empathizing with myself first that I am being bullied? No, I think I have a trigger point. I wear specs. I have big, soda glasses I had. So if I'm wearing soda glasses, I will be bullied. If I am a burn victim and I have some weird scars on my face, I will be bullied. I will be called names. I will be, it's okay. There is a trigger, there is a reaction, and it's okay. ऐसा होता है, ये चलता है. So where is empathy there? There's no question of empathy. So it's only when we are doing social psychology research and, from a research point of view, we are coming up with these breakups. But in an application format, if you are an acid attack victim, you will be bullied for your looks or you will be hyper criticized, okay? /bullying/ragging, it's understood. It's acceptable because there's a trigger. No, that is not okay. Did we say that? Did somebody tell me what is bullying? Did somebody make me aware? Do I have self-empathy towards this concept of bullying first? Then cognitive empathy. What is cognitive empathy? So before that, let's talk about affective empathy. Affect is emotion, okay, emotivity. So affective empathy is, I feel your pain. I'm able to feel your pain. Feel. So here, and cognitive empathy is, I may not feel it, but I understand. So the key word here is insight or awareness. Insight, as we call in psychology terms, awareness as we call in more generic terms, right? So now, what is important here? What's the most important thing that we are moving around when we are talking about empathy, bullying? What's one word? Awareness. Emotional education. Ma'am spoke about all these activities and reinforcers, right? And these are all part of emotional education. Did somebody tell me that this is a scenario that might happen? How are you supposed to respond to it? Did somebody make me aware that it is going to be an imperfect world and there will be these things and you have to take care of this? How will you, like if I may, like a heuristic, like a problem solving. If somebody calls you chashmish, how are you supposed to react? You're supposed to accept it and be quiet because you are wearing a specs. No. So empathy begins where the other person tells me, hey, this is what is bullying, don't do it. If this happens, go walk up to this counselor, walk up to this person in your school authority, walk up to wherever, or raise your voice against it, right? So here we are coming back to the doing part, which is most important. We are running out of time, so I'm not going to take too much time, and I'm going to leave it at that. Let's move on to the next question.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And you have brilliantly pointed out how awareness is the first and foremost step that we need to take, or the first and foremost point that we need to reach. So in that aspect, I would like to direct my next question to Deepshika. There is a clear line between what we know as bullying and what we call friendly teasing. So it has to have a demarcation somewhere which can help us identify whether the person is actually bullying others or whether this is actually a form of friendly teasing. So would you care to identify, some of the red flags that would help us demarcate between the two?
Basically, the thing is, friendly teasing and bullying is different. And sometimes if someone is teasing you friendly, like friendly teasing is okay, and it is playful, and sometimes it helps kids to have a more strong bond and have a friendly relationship with them. But when teasing is meant to hurt you or done over and over again or repetitive, then it becomes bullying. Like when a person is constantly trying to demean you and pull you down or discourage you, it can take a toll in someone's mental health. It can affect you mentally, physically, and also emotionally. You can feel that you don't have a worth, or you are not very special for someone, or there are actions which make you feel like you're very inferior to them. And when the red flags that the big red flags that are the big red flags that are obviously meant to clearly meant to do the clearly meant to having the toll in someone's mental health is that purposely making fun of you or making fun of your insecurities, and which can make you feel inferior or make you feel complex about it. Sometimes the people who bully you, they mock you on the basis of your skin color, body shaming, height. And most of the time there are people in the schools, when we are in 11th 12th grades, there are people who slut shame you, obviously. And that can make you feel very inferior, or sometimes they can like they say you can't do this thing, or you can never be this good or that. Then it is very harmful for the person who is getting bullied. It is something like they belittle you, or it gives them a sadistic pleasure in bullying you, and it boosts their ego as well. So it is very important for you to tell them to stop it and inform it to someone can take who can take charge of it, so that it is not repetitive, and you and that bully have an ego boundary which should not be violated. Because everyone, that is the bully or the who is the victim, they both have a self esteem, and their self should not be hurt. So it is sometimes like it is very important for the victim to speak up and tell the bully not to do it again and again.
So yes, very nicely put, Dipshika, and we can understand from a perspective of a student how it actually feels to be bullied. And you have brilliantly told us how bullying can be handled. Like, ignoring it, or just thinking it will go away is not the right way to go about if you're being bullied. Going to the proper authority figures like your teacher, the school psychologist, is the way to go. Thank you, Dipshika. So I would move on to Shonali ma'am now. Ma'am, what advice would you give the parents of a child who overlook their bullying behavior and justifies this act with statements such as, oh, he's just a child, or, this is just playful teasing between friends, there's nothing to be concerned about. And also in this perspective, we see that there are a lot of parents who are failing to accept or understand the point of view of their child who is being bullied as well. So how would you say we need to deal with these issues?
First of all, parents really need to be spoken to when they see that their child is getting affected because of something else. A parent needs to be aware that there is something wrong happening to my child. So let me find out what is happening to my child. And instead of ignoring it and saying, oh, these things happen, this is all a part of growing up. Yes, this is definitely a part of growing up. But how do you help your child to deal with it? We have become adults, but the child is going through it and the child is facing it. So the parents need to relive their childhood days and understand their child from a child's perspective and understand the trauma that a child is going through. Similarly, if a child is bullying, then the parents also need to be not overprotective about the child, saying that mera bachcha kabhi kar nahi sakta, that kind of an attitude. And they are children, they are different individuals, so they can do it. In a particular situation, maybe your child would not be doing it. Maybe at home, you are there are younger siblings, maybe your child is not doing it. But in school, the child is doing it. So first of all, you have to accept that your child probably is doing it, and therefore what do you need to do? So being overprotective about it is definitely not the solution at all, be it for a parent whose child is being bullied, or be it for a parent who is a parent of a child who is bullied. So they need to be they need to be aware of what is happening, and work hand in hand with the school to help the children. After all, many a time we've had this instance where a parent has come and said, so and so is bullying my child, ma'am, you have to do something very, very drastic, and maybe rusticate the child or suspend the child. They fail to understand that that child is also a child of another parent, and that child needs help. So the point is, how are you going to help that child? It's not enough to just suspend a child or just punish a child. First of all, like I said, that is a complete no-no. But each parent has to understand that just a suspension or a punishment, or doing something drastic like that is not going to help the child. In fact, it's going to make matters worse. So how are you going to help the child? Let us sit, let us discuss. You can't just give a TC to a child because the child is bullying. Okay, it might have been very serious. I agree. Sometimes it can become very serious, but that is not a solution. So one needs to understand that and the parents also need to understand that children, their own child, need to be, the child needs to be empowered to face the situation, because we adults can never be with the child all the time. The child will have to face the world himself. So the child will have to do it, and we can only guide and help the child. So each and every parent, be it of a bully or of the one who is being bullied, the parents and the teachers, in fact, let me put it as adults. Adults have to realize that we need to create that awareness, very rightly, like Pragya said, we need to create that awareness and empower both, sensitize both, that this is not correct. So the bully needs to be sensitized, needs to become more caring and understand that it is hurting somebody. And the bullied needs to know that if I am not saying anything, I am giving into it, and I am therefore supporting it silently. So I have to raise my voice against it. How I do it? Fine, let me take help. So help is needed both ways. Parents, teachers, we have to give that help. And if we find that, yes, it has reached a stage where it has become very serious, then we go for professional help. And that is why y'all are there, Shomali, Pragya, you all are there to actually take it on as an expert, and work on it at a different level. So that also needs to be done. And that is the role of a teacher, of the school administrators, that if you feel that a child, and definitely the parents, if you feel that the child needs help, if your child has become very traumatized, needs help, take help. Take help from professionals like y'all. It is very necessary.
So yes, ma'am. So parental acceptance and awareness is very important so that they can work together with the teachers and counselors.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am. So I would now move on to Dr. Pragya Rashmi. Ma'am, I would like to ask you that since you are a clinician and you have been practicing for this many long years, you have dealt with countless adult clients as well as child clients during your practice. Now, would you say that bullying goes beyond the boundary of school life and indeed plays a very active role in a lot of hostile adult relationships, such as, ragging, and which is often, justified by the students who do it as more of an initiation ritual or something that would, prepare you for your harsh college life? So would you say that it can be considered as an extended or a modified version of this childhood bullying that we see in school?
So, like I said in the beginning, we are thinking children bully and then adults also bully. No, it is not like that. It is a social phenomena, right? A social phenomena that transgresses age. If this talk was on geriatrics, we would have so many examples. If this talk was on, professional employment related issues, we would have had so many examples. So it is not an educational issue only. This is my personal feel. Okay. So when we are talking about bullying as a cultural concept, right? So is it an acceptable concept? Yes, it is. It's okay to bully. Like Deepshika said, there is a line. Certain things are okay. Teasing is okay. How much of not okay is okay? Children jokingly push each other. It's fun. A small 6-year-old boy takes a balloon and throws it at his sister's face, and everybody in the family laughs. Are we starting there? Of course we are starting there. When my grandfather tells me tales of his IIT days and how he has done this, and we had ragging, and it is a glamorized fun activity. Am I looking forward to doing it? Of course I am. This is about modeling behavior, right? It is a social phenomena that we are modeling. Now I don't want to get into gun control and all of that, but we are having those issues in school. Where is this aggression coming in? So if we look at broad categories in psychology, so my question to you, Somali, if I may, will be, which category in social psychology does bullying come into? Aggression, aggressive behavior, right? So aggressive behavior, automatically the treatment or the control is in control of that aggression. How much of aggression is acceptable aggression? How much of it is nice? How much of it is not nice? So bullying will always be habitual. Bullying will always be ritualistic. There is a certain thing that they do, right? And bullying will always be repetitive. So if we know that there is a set pattern to the thing, what are we supposed to do? How do we break it? How would you break it? We break it simply by breaking this link. Now, socially, ragging as an initiation ceremony. When a newlywed wife comes into the family, make puris or cook something that maybe she can't, or ask her the names of all relatives in the house, which she can't, right? Or small things which are part of games, which are part of fun activities, which are part of cultural phenomena, rituals, rites to passage. The moment I'm talking about rite to passage, what am I saying? I'm above you. You're there. It's power dynamics. Like Dr. Ram talked about counseling setups and, mental health and bullying there in professional life. So if you actually look at work that has been done, we'll find that there is so much law, medicine, these kind of professions, okay, where bullying is almost like a professional culture. It's part. A senior will rag a junior. It's part of the game. And let me ask you a question. Answer that. Can you unmute yourself? I'll take a second. Is tolerance a virtue?
Not always.
Not always.
Not always.
Not always.
Not always. But we have been taught that tolerance is a virtue. And the more you tolerate, the stronger you are as a human being.
But tolerating what? That is what one needs to see.
So then, the moment we are talking about tolerance as a virtue, we don't know what to tolerate. We've not been taught that part. We've just been told tolerate. The more you can bear, you have your religious, mythical stories about tolerance. You have all these stories of tolerance, teachers telling you about tolerance. Tolerate what? Nobody said tolerate nonsense. Right, but when we are tolerating and we've inculcated that value as a cultural value, we've gone into tolerating everything that's coming in, anything that's doled out to me. So, including that line that is crossed. Not every teasing is bullying. Let's get that. Not every fun activity is bullying. Right? When we started this webinar and when all of us were there, we were all teasing each other and saying things and, this and that. That's not bullying. That's social interaction. That's fun. Bullying is when it is harmful. Bullying is when it is vicious. Bullying is with a motive to hurt. It's the motive that counts. And no culture should help propagate that. If we are doing it, we need to unlearn it. Just like we have upgraded in so many things, we need to upgrade our social change to a better format if we are doing it right. So that's that. Culture needs to change. Absolutely, it is part of culture, but we need to unlearn. We need to stand up and say no, and which is where, you know, possibly we need to understand that the younger people, Deepshikas of the world, are going to do it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So the importance of tolerance and, you know, understanding where to draw the line and teaching our children where to draw the line. Like, as you mentioned, ma'am, in our culture, characters such as, you know, who have tolerated pain and suffering from another source and haven't spoken out about it are often considered as someone with a strong personality. Like, we can take Karna from Mahabharata. He had suffered a lot of, you know, indignities held upon him, but since he was considered to be someone who was strong, you know, a representative of strength, so the more he tolerated, the more he was respected and the more he is considered virtuous. So we have to see how far tolerance takes you and where to draw the line. Wonderful.
Absolutely.
So, ma'am, I would like to move on to Shonali, ma'am. Ma'am, one thing that I would like to point out is that Amnesty International India, it has honored the Human Rights Month, and it conducted a program, an awareness program basically, in 2014 with 130 schools, and the children themselves were encouraged to come up with anti-bullying strategies. So normally when we see that children are trained in this particular aspect, there are a lot of trainers and facilitators who are adults who come and teach the children, they sort of demonstrate why bullying is wrong, how you should react if you're being bullied. But this is a more direct approach in the sense that the target population themselves are being involved in the activity, and they are themselves being sort of encouraged to give solutions to a very rampant problem. So, ma'am, would you think this is a better approach?
It definitely is. Like I said, children, accept things from their own peer group more than adults. And because they feel that they are also, the generation gap is not there and they will be understood better. This whole buddy system, if I may use the word, definitely helps where, say there is a child who has got into the habit of bullying. See, bullying becomes a habit, and they say, so you have a child who has got into this habit of bullying. You have some of your responsible children, you take them into confidence, you talk to them and you tell them that, look, this child needs help. You're not targeting that child and saying that, okay, that child is a bad child or doing something wrong. Absolutely not. But you call in these, so-called your confidants, and you tell them that, look, you take them into your confidence and you tell them that, look, we need your help. And we would want you to reach out and we would want you to make that child understand, whenever the child wants to do something, maybe you distract the child and make the child understand, look, let's do it some other way, because it will hurt so and so. So that works a lot. Even for the one who is being bullied, put them with these kind of children, a group of children who are more mature and, who are sensible and who are outspoken as well, who will help this child to reach out, who will help this child to speak out, who will help this child to fight her own battles, his or her own battles. You see? So in both ways, you can use the peer as a very, very important tool to handle the issue of bullying. It is definite, has worked, it will work. And very importantly, like Pragya said, or was it Deepshika, where, you feel that I have a friend, I have people who are looking out for me, so in future, it will never come to that, that anger, the deep hurt that I didn't have anybody. Here, the child will grow up feeling that, yes, I've always had my peer group looking out for me. And my friends who have helped me grow, who have helped me to transform, who have helped me to change. So that will also come in. So the child never feels alone. So empowering them with the help. And on the other hand, the children who you are taking help from, they become more confident. When they grow up, they become proper leaders. You know, they become the leaders that we can look up to, because they are actually reaching out to society, to the ills of society, helping bringing about a change, instead of just passing a judgment. This is bad, this is good.
Yeah.
Fine, there are ills. Let us see what we can do about it. So they are the ones who take that up in that manner, and they, you know, that whole attitude changes. And it
Yes.
starts from when they are children.
Absolutely, yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, the last question that we have time for today, I would like to direct it at Pragya, ma'am. I have also gotten an audience question, which basically asks how an adult is supposed to deal with it if they are still sad or hurt about being bullied in childhood. So, ma'am, bullying can often lead to, idealized body types or low self-esteem if it continues for a significant duration of time, where the person sort of develops low self-esteem to such an extent that they might actually start to self-bully or bully themselves, or this could also create problems in forming secure adult relationships. So how do you propose that we deal with this scenario?
So self-bullying, again, newer concept. The terms are new, the phenomenons are old. Self-bullying, what we called hypercriticism, oversensitivity to to a certain thing. Now, what is self-bullying? Self-bullying is you tell me something bad about me, I say it 500 times in my own head, and now I believe that and I'm hurt about it. So now the bully is gone, I am my own bully, right? And I continue to hurt myself. So I am the bully, I'm the perpetrator, and I'm the victim, and I'm that ABCD, I'm the bullying circle. So I go through so many mood changes, right? So one of the things that we see in clinical, of course, I don't want to talk too much clinical stuff, but the moment we see that there are so many dire consequences, which is why we are finding, suicides, depressions, and don't want to get into the clinical sphere. But so let's understand a very short thing here. In schools, with all due respect to ma'am sitting here, and I'm very appreciative of her school and her ways, but with all due respect, every school, every education system, every family teaches me to be perfect, teaches me what are the right things, how to be good. Nobody teaches me what to do when things are not good. Now, the fact of the matter is we don't live in a perfect world. All of these children who are now given these virtues, principles, morals, they have this guidelines, SOPs of living a life, are now living a life in an imperfect world. It's not matching. They don't know how to deal with it, right? And if they are looking up for validity. They are looking up for validity from everyone, right? And when you're looking up for validity from another person, and that person tells me, oh, you're, like I said, you're chashmish. So I believe I'm chashmish. And then I'm now telling myself every single day, I'm chashmish, I'm chashmish, I'm chashmish. Nobody's going to like me. There is rejection, there is depression, there is anxiety, isolation. I have isolated myself. I have withdrawn because I know nobody's going to like me. So how do we end this? Obviously, by teaching our children that, hey, it's not going to be a perfect world. Healthy negative emotions. If you have a big house and you don't have a dustbin in that, right? So you need to have a dustbin in your mind to collect all the garbage that society imperfections are going to give your way. Healthy negative emotion. I allow myself to feel bad so that I don't end up feeling terribly sad or depressed. I said, oh, this person said, Shomali said this to me. I felt very bad. And I let myself feel, oh, so I'm feeling bad. It's a low feeling. I accept that low feeling instead of fighting against it all the time. Instead of fighting against every criticism that's coming my way, right? So my bearability of imperfection increases. The triggers will still be there. The bullies of the world will still be there. My bearability of everything has increased. So when you call me chashmish, I say, yeah, good for you. Aren't you looking at one and liking it? So, so I have learned, and then we don't need to go into the whole gamut of, dealing with the person vanishes, right? Because now I have gained that confidence. So what are we talking about? We are talking about a sense of fairness. We are talking about compassion. We are talking about taking up responsibility for each other. Where is the time to teach all that? There's so much syllabus, there's so much marks to be got, and every school now is aware and they're putting in their bit. Society is aware, psychologists are obviously making money. We are all working and making a living, right? We weren't 15, 20 years back, we weren't so prosperous. So obviously there is more awareness in the world, thankfully, right? And good for that. More power to our tribe of awareness, right? So I think those are the facts that we need to understand.
Yes, ma'am.
That the fact and the assumptions that people are saying, just because you said there's a black mark on my face, there isn't a black mark on my face. I will have to have self-belief, right? And we can do that. It's really easy to teach children. When you tell them, hey, you know what, there are going to be people who are going to tell you all kinds of, wrong stuff, and you'll have to deal with that. So they know, oh, this also happens in the world. They're prepared. So let's start there.
Yes.
Let's make it a better world. We are on Friendship Day today. And if I may say so, Shomali, happy Friendship Day, as I wished you already earlier.
Thank you, ma'am.
So let's just be more compassionate. Let's not talk about how to deal. Let's not get into the process. Let's just be kinder. Let's just be more nicer to each other and, smile more. Let's just be happier and more accepting of our imperfections. How does that sound?
Yes,
Perfect. That's
wonderful.
I think for a person who is being bullied, I think we need to up their AQ, as it is called today, where fine, it's okay, that doesn't make me any worse or any better. I am the way I am, and I'm good. I'm good the way I am. I'm loved the way I am.
Yes.
So
yes.
I think that helps. That attitude definitely helps. And laugh about it. Laugh it off.
Imperfections are beautiful.
Imperfections don't have to be beautiful or good. Imperfections are there.
It's there.
We just don't have to talk about it. We don't have to judge it as good, bad. Why does everything have to be good, bad? Why do we have to talk so much about it? It's there. Deal with it. Cope with it. Move on. And not in a putting under the carpet kind of a way. That's
yes,
my approach.
Yes, ma'am.
True.
So thank you for the discussion today. It was enriching and wonderful. And ma'am, we are officially out of time, but I would still like to direct one question from the audience. Just, one line, Shonali ma'am, that you would tell a parent who has just realized that their child is being bullied and is probably facing a lot of self-guilt. So one line of positivity that you would tell that person.
Tell your child is good the way he is. He is special, and he should feel that he is special. And we are all there for your child. So there is nothing for your child to feel guilty about. And because your child is good, your child should be happy. Your child is happy. And you are happy because your child is whole, in fact. So fine. Whoever is saying, see, there are 10 people who will say 10 different things. It depends on you, what you give importance to. If you give importance to the people who are adding positivity to your life, those are the ones that will add positivity, and those are the ones who will make you happy. Ignore the ones who are adding negativities to your life. You will find everything changes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. So we will end today on a positive note. So this Friendship Day, let us try and make empathy our life's motto. Let us try to be kind and understanding and accepting instead of breaking hearts. So in conclusion, I would request our technical team members to share the helpline or the hotline numbers for both the cybercrime cell of India, as well as the anti-ragging helpline that has been created by the UGC. These are national hotlines which you can avail and which you can take support from in case you're facing cyber bullying or you're facing ragging. So take care, everyone. Thank you for attending, and we hope you have a wonderful day. Happy Friendship Day, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here.
Signing out.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.